In the year 1616, Sir Walter Raleigh wrote his History of the World during his imprisonment in the Tower of London, or so it is said. This work contained references to the Book of Enoch, which was discovered during that period in Ethiopia and translated from the Guizi language. And in the year 1946, Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew fragments of this very book were uncovered within the caves of Qumran, in the Judean desert, or the wilderness of Hebron, texts known today as the Dead Sea Scrolls, which came to lift the veil upon yet another chapter of our lost history. The verses recorded in the 6th chapter of the book of Genesis are truly among the most astonishing verses in the entire Bible. And this passage's significance rests upon numerous considerations, the most notable being that it presents an entire historical epic with the utmost brevity. We read within it of the sons of God and of the birth of the giants, and then the narrative swiftly presses forward. It further tells us that the Creator was displeased with the state of humanity, and thus resolved to destroy the earth and reset it. Note that this very point raised by the researcher was addressed with a clarifying note in the previous installment. Everything you need to know lies within this chapter. Yet that perspective planted within our minds since childhood acknowledges only what it permits us to see. The mention of non-human beings, of the sons of God, of the giants, and of the earth's destruction are matters this perspective processes and concludes to be nothing but a mythical tale. And the very brevity of the passage discourages the curious from probing any deeper. Yet in truth, this passage carries us into a remarkably specific historical epic, one in which non-human beings intermarried with human women, begetting mighty beings, men of renown and fame, and then the flood arrives. And as the narrative proceeds, the questioning mind cries out, "Do not stop, tell me more. What happened during that period? Who were the sons of God? And why was the whole earth corrupt?" Though the book of Genesis offers no details, if we turn our attention to the book of Enoch, we begin to see the broad outlines forming this hazy picture of the antediluvian world. This text is of the utmost importance, for whether divinely inspired or not, or even were it merely another text of half-truths bearing a Masonic character, it nonetheless offers considerable understanding of the antediluvian epic to which Genesis alludes so briefly and demonstrates the necessity of the flood. It likewise presents visions concerning the workings of the heavenly luminaries and concerning the coming prophetic millennial kingdom of Christ. The first book of Enoch, known as the Book of the Watchers, relates the following. "And it came to pass, when the sons of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives for ourselves from among the daughters of men, and beget us children. And Sanjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. But they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath and bind ourselves by mutual curses not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then they descended upon the daughters of men, and took unto themselves wives, and began to go in unto them, and defile themselves with them. And they conceived and bore great giants, whose height was 3,000 cubits, who devoured all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them, and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink blood. As you can see, the passages recounting the birth of the giants, later known as the Nephilim, bear a remarkable resemblance to what is recorded in the 6th chapter of Genesis. It is notable, too, that the 6th chapter of the book of Enoch likewise opens its narrative with the intermingling of the sons of heaven and the sons of men, and the resulting birth of the giants. Yet the book of Enoch offers somewhat greater clarity than Genesis. For we see a class of beings belonging to the heavenly realm, referred to as angels, swearing an oath to commit a genetic mixing that is, interbreeding between different species. And here, inevitably, that constraining perspective of ours becomes active once more. For when we hear the word angel, our perspective instantly produces a certain stereotyped image, a carefully constructed program planted within our consciousness since childhood, propagated by religious institutions, national holidays, and other cultural mediums. In truth, no one knows with certainty what an angelic being looks like, nor is the notion of another world, a heavenly world, any less mysterious than the angelic being itself. The text tells us these angels were led by an angel named Semjaza, known within the Book of Enoch and the apocryphal literature as chief of the Watcher Angels. And the Book of Enoch enumerates more than 18 of these angelic leaders, calling them chiefs of tens. It further tells us that more than 200 of these beings descended with the intention of committing this genetic intermingling. As for the manner in which this occurred, it was no mere carnal seduction. These were not the acts of beings merely desiring human women, but meticulously organized plan, drawn up within a near-military chain of command. Hence their need to swear an oath, for they understood that once they began carrying out their plan, there could be no turning back. And in the Book of Visions, Enoch beholds a nightmare of what is to come, saying, "I raised my eyes toward heaven and saw a lofty roof, and upon that roof 7 channels of water, and those channels flowed with abundant waters into an enclosure. And when I looked upon a height of those waters, behold, they had risen above the height of the enclosure, and begun to overflow upon it." What becomes clear from both Genesis and the Book of Enoch is that these angelic beings did not carry the same genetic makeup as humans, and that they descended from another world, referred to as the heavenly world. Most importantly, they were responsible for corrupting the human genetic line. The result was the birth of hybrid giants of immense size, and this is why the flood became an inevitable necessity. Nor was the birth of these genetically hybrid giants, the Nephilim, the only act of genetic intermingling that occurred upon the earth. For as both Genesis and the Book of Enoch make clear, the hybrid Nephilim began sinning against every form of life upon the earth, including birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish. And the sin here is experimental, genetic intermingling. But why is this intermingling considered a sin? Once again, the Bible offers us certain clues, for the sacred texts and the law of Moses emphasize the importance of preserving genetic purity, stating, "Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed." According to these texts, in the first week of creation, the Creator established a genetic order for the world, saying, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind." Here we notice the repetition of phrases such as "after his kind" or "according to its species," no fewer than 9 times within the first chapter of Genesis. The Hebrew term min, translated here as kind or species, refers to a biological family or type. From this, we understand that preserving genetic order is fundamental to creation. Yet despite this, the contamination or corruption of the genetic lineage of every fleshly creature was not the sole sin of the fallen angels. For as the Book of Enoch explains, these beings were likewise responsible for teaching mankind the eternal secrets that belonged to heaven, secrets which men sought to learn, such as instructing them in the metals of the earth and the art of extracting and forging them. They taught them also incantations and the cutting of roots, the knowledge of the stars and the workings of the planets, the knowledge of the clouds, and the signs of the earth, sun, and moon. And no sooner were these secrets given, secrets that inevitably fell into the hands of the hybrid Nephilim, than all of humanity began to grow corrupt. Well, I believe questions still remain, the most important being two. First, why did God not intervene earlier when the angelic beings descended to earth with organized and clear intentions to corrupt the genetic order of creation, thereby averting the flood from the outset. And second, why is the preservation of genetic integrity considered a matter of such profound importance? As for the first question, it represents the inability of many to grasp the notion of God as a good, forgiving, and merciful deity. Many cannot reconcile the existence of a benevolent God with the existence of so much evil and corruption in the world. Yet the answer to this apparent contradiction is exceedingly simple and lies concealed within the code of the Bible and within Enoch's very lineage. As I mentioned before, Enoch begot a son named Methuselah. And the name Methuselah is a remarkably striking one, meaning in Hebrew, when he dies, it shall be sent. And upon closer examination of the chronology, we find it no coincidence that Methuselah died in the very same year the flood was sent to cleanse the earth. For the word sent, to which Methuselah's name alludes, refers in truth to the flood itself. That is, when he dies, the flood shall be sent. Methuselah lived the longest life of any human recorded in the Bible, and his death was the very signal announcing the flood's imminent arrival. For when Methuselah reached 187 years, he begot Lamech. And when Lamech reached 182 years, he begot Noah. And the flood came when Noah was 600 years of age, the very same year in which Methuselah died. By simple arithmetic, we find his age reached 969 years. This demonstrates that the Creator, exalted be He, granted humanity nearly 1,000 years to repent and to reject the rebellion of the fallen angels and their Nephilim offspring, who were corrupting the earth. And of course, mankind did not repent, nor did they change their conduct. As for the skeptical mind, swollen and burdened by the weight of a vast accumulation of nonsense, it will mock once more, saying, "But if the Creator were good and all-powerful, why did He not intervene from the very beginning? Why wait at all?" This mind lacks even the most elementary rules of logic, for what truly grants legitimacy to the coexistence of good and evil is free will. For the existence of free will, that is, man's capacity to choose and to bear the consequences of his choice, is precisely what makes us free. Had the Creator, exalted be He, intervened to control the outcomes, we would possess no autonomy. Whoever restricts the freedom of choice, whatever his intentions, becomes, as a matter of plain fact, a tyrant. Thus, walking the righteous path or the crooked one is a choice man must make for himself and bear the consequences of that choice. As for the second question, why the preservation of genetic integrity is a matter of such paramount importance, the sacred books tell us that Noah was a righteous man who walked in the way of God and was perfect in his generations, for he chose not to submit to the practices of his peers, nor to walk the path of genetic intermingling then being practiced upon the earth under the leadership of the hybrid Nephilim descendants, the offspring of the fallen angels. God was thus his shepherd, and he followed his guidance and resisted the false leadership that would ultimately have corrupted his genetic line. Accordingly, the preservation of genetic integrity is considered a fundamental element of righteousness. Why? First and foremost, because it upholds the lineage that God ordained. We were not created to merge our genes with those of other species. The significance of this becomes clear when we consider the angelic beings or fallen demons, for we are told they descended from another world, a heavenly world, and that their genetics differ fundamentally from human genetics. In truth, the notion of preserving genetic integrity is not difficult to grasp, for we see with our own eyes that the serpent, the dolphin, and the gorilla each maintain genetic structures distinct from one another, and this governs their capacity for physical navigation through the world with differing experiences. Yet the notion of another world, a heavenly world, remains difficult to accept, and this too, in itself, is part of our programming. For since childhood, worlds are depicted to us as spherical planetary masses, while we are never offered an alternative world to Earth in which life exists, thriving and sustained under entirely different biological, chemical, geological, and atmospheric conditions. We alone inhabit our supposedly small planet within our solar system, which spins like a vortex. They have expended great effort convincing us that we are utterly isolated. Yet despite the lies of the solar system, were other existential worlds indeed to exist, it is likely their conditions would differ radically, and that the genetics of earthly human life would prove incompatible with their environments. Many have written of genetic corruption in the antediluvian world. And in explaining the spiritual body, Paul states, "All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, but the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body, and so it is written." This passage describes two kinds of bodies, earthly bodies belonging to our world and heavenly bodies belonging to another world. It further indicates that human genetics and angelic genetics, despite their differences, bear considerable resemblance to one another. This is why intermarriage between angels and humans was possible in the first place. And as the very text states, "God giveth it a body as it hath pleased him, and to every seed his own body," which indicates that these angelic beings are indeed capable of reproduction. And in Psalm 78, "He rained down manna upon them to eat, and gave them of the corn of heaven. Man did eat angels' food, he sent them meat to the full." Here we see that humans are capable of eating the very same food that angels eat. And in the book of Daniel, chapter 8, the prophet meets the angel Gabriel face to face and describes him as having the appearance of a man. The sacred scriptures have always been remarkably clear in demonstrating the genetic resemblance between angelic beings and humans. The fundamental difference, however, is that man is of the earth, that is, bound to the earth, subject to perishing and death, while the angel is not so bound. Note that the researcher continues to draw upon the Bible, which he himself has described as having undergone extensive corruption. And though, to be fair, he draws from it evidence supporting the existence of earthly and heavenly creatures alike, and demonstrates that intermingling between them corrupts genetic composition, he nonetheless continues to use the term fallen angels, even though these fallen beings were most likely demons rather than angels. For we truly do not know the form angels take, yet we know they are not held accountable, meaning they do not possess the free will held only by humans and jinn. And if they possess no free will, how then do they rebel against God? The researcher has labored to establish the possibility of marriage between humans and these heavenly beings, and that such genetic intermingling constitutes a grave corruption. Yet had he approached the matter from the Islamic perspective, he would have found it far simpler. From the Islamic perspective, assuming the possibility of marriage between a human and a jinn, such a union would not be permissible under religious law. The Hanafi jurist al-Sijistani cited numerous grounds for its prohibition, then stated, "And once the prohibition is established, forbidding the marriage of a jinn to a human woman is all the more warranted and fitting, lest a woman found pregnant claim her pregnancy came from her jinn husband, thereby multiplying corruption." And al-Mawardi stated regarding marriage between the children of Adam and the jinn, "This is deemed repugnant to reason, owing to the disparity of the two kinds and the difference of their two natures, for the human is corporeal while the jinn is spiritual. This one is of clay like pottery, and that one is of a smokeless flame of fire, and mixture despite such disparity is precluded, and procreation amid such difference is forbidden." The jurists have very nearly reached consensus that marriage between a human and a jinn woman, assuming its possibility, itself a far-fetched notion, entails numerous corruptions, and is thus forbidden under religious law. And of course, the marriage of a jinn man to a human woman is all the more deserving of prohibition. But as we always repeat, all of this remains a matter of scholarly interpretation, while true knowledge rests with the Creator.